Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Faris Irfan Birusli and my group members is
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Abdurrahman Muharrik Shauki, metric number 2413653.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Mohsin bin Muhammad Mahyudi.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Irfan Shakir bin Ilyas, metric number 2415399.
Welcome to our presentation on one of the most influential figures in Islamic history, Imam Al-Ghazali. He is a theologian, philosopher and jurist. His profound insight have left an indelible marks on various fields, including psychology. Today, we will delve into his background, explore his work related to psychology's principle, discuss his contribution to the field of psychology, and share our perspective on the relevance of his ideas in contemporary time. Imam Al-Ghazali's full name was Abu Hamid Muhammad ibn Muhammad al-Tusi al-Ghazali. He was born in 1058 CE in the city of Tus, located in the Khorasan region of present-day of Iran. After the death of his father, Al-Ghazali and his brother were placed under the care of a Sufi teacher. He began his formal education in fiqh in his hometown and later continues his study in Nishapur under the tutelage of Imam Al-Haramain Al-Juwaini, a leading scholar of the time. Al-Ghazali's exceptional intellect and scholarship earned him recognition, leading to his appointment in 1091 CE as a chief professor at the prestigious Nazimiyya College in Baghdad. This institution was considered the most esteemed center of learning in the Islamic world at that time. Despite his academic success, Al-Ghazali experienced a profound spiritual crisis. He began to question the sincerity of his intention and the true purpose of his scholarly pursuit. In 1095 CE, he abandoned his position and embarked on a journey seeking spiritual fulfillment. He performed the pilgrimage to Mecca and spent time in Damascus, Jerusalem, and other cities, engaging in a deep contemplation and Sufi practices. Imam Al-Ghazali's journey was not just a shift from academic scholarship to spirituality. It marked a profound transformation in his understanding on the human mind and soul. His experience during his spiritual crisis and his deep immersion in Sufi practices led him to explore inner psychological state, emotional control. His experience during his spiritual crisis and his deep immersion in Sufi practices led him to explore inner psychological state, emotional control, and character development. This personal transformation laid the foundation for many of his psychological insight, especially in his later work like Ihya Ulumuddin. In the next section, we will explore how Al-Ghazali writing reflect early psychological concepts and how his thought have influenced the field of psychology, especially from an Islamic perspective.
I'll be talking about the psychological themes found in the most influential work of Imam Al-Ghazali, that is Ihya Ulumuddin, or the revival of the religious sciences. Although it's primarily a religious text, it contains profound insights into human nature and personality, making it highly relevant to Islamic psychology. Furthermore, Ihya Ulumuddin provides a systematic and spiritually grounded theory of personality, behavior, and transformation. It remains a cornerstone in Islamic psychology and offers a rich framework for understanding the human mind and soul. Al-Ghazali's work addresses some aspects of psychological topics, and in this video, I'll walk through four of the major ones. For the first point, Al-Ghazali described four main components of the human being. There is the nafs or self, which includes desires, the qalb, heart, which is the center of spiritual consciousness, the akal or intellect, which allows for reasoning, and the ruh, the spirit, which connect us to the divine. Together, these form a holistic model of psyche that combines emotional, rational, and spiritual dimensions. For a deeper explanation, my friend Eric will explain more detail after this. Secondly, the central theme in Al-Ghazali's work is the dual nature of human beings. He sees us as composed of two aspects, the physical body and the spiritual soul. The body is necessary, it allows us to live in the world, but it is ultimately a vehicle. The soul, on the other hand, is eternal and determines our true identity. This idea is important psychologically because it shifts our focus from just material well being to the condition of inner self. Al Ghazali argues that problems like anxiety, anger, or moral confusion aren't just emotional or social issues, they reflect an imbalance between our physical and spiritual sides. Next is the concept of free will versus determinism. He acknowledged that there are biological urges and environmental pressure that shape human behavior, but he insists that humans are ultimately capable of choosing their actions. He introduced the concept of ikhtiyar, or responsible of choice. It is not absolute freedom, but rather the capacity to choose what is good or what is bad, especially when supported by knowledge, faith, and intention. Lastly is the one of Al-Ghazali's most insightful contributions is his classification of the soul into three stages which mirror psychological development. First is An-Nafs Al-Ammara, the commanding soul. This is the lowest stage where desires dominate and a person is driven by anger, lust, greed, and ego. It is impulsive and self-centered, much like Freud's concept of id. The second is an-nafs al-lawwamah, the self-reproaching soul. Here, the person becomes aware of their wrongs. They begin to feel guilt, regret, and the need for change. This stage is crucial. It reflects the beginning of self-awareness, similar to the role of the superego in Freudian theory. Finally, there is an-nafs al-mutma'inna, the tranquil soul. This is the ideal state where the soul is at peace, aligned with divine will, and free from inner conflict. It reflects a state of psychological wholeness and spiritual maturity.
And inshallah, I will explain about Al-Ghazali contribution to modern psychology. The first topic is Al-Ghazali contribution to psychology is a contribution about spiritual and philosophical foundation of of psychology itself. Abu Hamid Al-Ghazali, as mentioned before, is a Persian scholar, theologian, philosopher, and mystic or Sufism. Although psychology is as a distinct scientific discipline didn't exist in his lifetime. So in his lifetime, psychology is not an independent science, but a combination about medicine, ethics, and many more. His ideas is continue to influence Islamic psychology and provide insight relevant to modern psychology theories. And he explained about understanding of the human soul that he different of human psychology into four parts: nafs, qalb, akal, and ruh. And the first, nafs or lower self, is the source of desires and base instinct. And second, qalb or heart, is the spiritual center capable of moral perspection. And akal or intellect is a rational faculty used for reasoning and discernment. And the last one, the ruh or the spirit, is the this divine aspect that connects human to God. And in psychological or spiritual development, Al-Ghazali believed that human beings undergo a transformative journey from base instinct towards spiritual purity. He outlined a process called Tazkiyah al-Nafs, or purification of the soul, which involves self-examination, repentance, discipline of ego, and the last one is cultivation of virtues like patience, gratitude, and sincerity. Okay, thank you.
And I will be explaining about modern applications of Al-Ghazali's teachings. Al-Ghazali's teachings are used in counseling and helping people with trauma. For example, techniques like Mujahadah, Riyadah, and Tazkiyatun Nafs are integrated in counseling models that helps individuals to maintain a holistic mental health. Furthermore, clinicians have successfully used Al-Ghazali's method, Maqamat, which includes Taubah, Sabar, and Shukur when guiding people through post-traumatic growth. Another modern application of Al-Ghazali's teachings is in educational settings, where his teachings help inspire character education, mindfulness, and emotional awareness. For example, corporate training programs have adopted Al-Ghazali's method of mindfulness, which helps to reduce burnout and enhance decision-making skills. In addition to that, encouraging employees to reflect on their intentions and align their actions with ethical values will result in improved job satisfaction and team cohesion. Next, we will discuss our opinion on the applications of Al-Ghazali's teachings in current times. We think that Al-Ghazali's teachings and techniques should be used by all Islamic psychologists and should be implemented in all of their works. This is because Al-Ghazali's teachings are in line with Islam while also being effective and helpful in curing people with mental problems. However, this does not mean that we should reject other psychologists' views and teachings. Instead, we should integrate those views and implement the good while rejecting the bad. By doing this, we will be able to expand our knowledge on psychology, and we will be able to find out what works and what doesn't when it comes to curing people with mental problems.
So, in conclusion, we can see that Imam Al-Ghazali was not just a renowned scholar of Islamic sciences, but also a pioneer in early psychological thinking. His spiritual crisis marked a turning point that led him to deeply explore the inner dimension of human self, which is clearly reflected in his later work. Concepts such as nafs, the self or ego, tazkiyatun nafs, purification of the soul, and self-accountability form a psychological framework that align with many modern therapeutic principles, especially those that emphasize emotional regulation, moral behavior, and spiritual balance. As a student and learners today, we can draw inspiration from his holistic approach, one that promotes balance in mind, body, and soul for true well-being. Thank you for your attention. That's all from us. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.